Pictured as a young Vladimir Putin, who is part of the KGB security team, we see him introducing his son to the former US President Ronald Reagan. Also pictured is Mikhail Gorbachev. Vladimir Putin came to power with the sponsorship of Boris Yeltsin. Yeltsin came to power with the sponsorship of the Russian oligarchs. For millennium, the cabal has been using the Hegelian dialect. The Hegelian dialect was the policies of George Hegel, a German philosopher. All historical events emerge from a conflict between opposing forces. The whole purpose of the dialectic is to control the masses like herding sheep. Whenever people see a group or belief system as evil, they instinctively move to the political opposite of what they identified as threatening.
The order has either set up or penetrated just about every significant research, policy and opinion-making organization in the United States, in addition to the church, business, government and politics. The evolution of America reflecting individual opinion, ideas and decisions at the grassroots is simply not true. On the contrary, says Anthony Sutton, the writer of this book, the broad direction has been created artificially and stimulated by the order. He's a brilliant writer, this guy. Next, please. Here it is. Now what's this one? The order follows the philosophies of George Hegel, a German philosopher. All historical events emerge from a conflict between opposing forces. Excuse me, everybody. You must have a conflict before we get the New World Order. Now he divides the world, this philosopher called Hegel, he says part of the world is thesis, the other half is antithesis, and when you bring them together that is called synthesis. Let's look at South Africa, shall we? Thesis, Nelson Mandela, ANC. Antithesis, Buthelezi, the Zulus. There is no chance of peace between the two groups. Henry Kissinger goes over there. The next thing he brings them together and they have the rainbow nation, the new South Africa. It happens. That is called synthesis. What else? America and Russia. America, thesis, Russia, antithesis. At a certain time in history, they come together and they now have a headquarters running space program together. It used to be, hate each other. They said the axis of evil. They said the evil nation, satanic and so on. Next thing you see Ronald Reagan next to Gorbachev. And now it's Ronnie and Gorby.
Putin's role was to follow Yeltsin's footsteps, as the Hegelian dialect was already played out in bringing the two nations, the US and Russia, together. But something terrible has gone wrong for the cabal and their world takeover. In the beginning, Vladimir Putin was playing a very complex multi-level game, just like a double agent, with some of the most insidious forces on the planet. He even accepted bribes and played the game of corruption until he turned the game against the cabal. Things have certainly changed in Russia. The Western worldwide media started the biggest lie and propaganda campaign against Putin and every country who opposes the New World Order. Keep in mind that currently 80% of US electronic and print media are owned by only 6 large corporations. This development has taken place in the last 2 decades. These corporations are elite-owned. They demonize Putin on a daily basis to the sleeping dead and the gullible. The US is fed up with their nation's corrupt, mendacious, ineffectual leadership that a group of Americans are seeking to join the Russian Federation. The group is collecting signatures for a national referendum on whether to remain a failed state, an economic basket case run by criminal neocons, or to join the Russian Federation under a president with a proven track record of bringing oligarchs to heel, said Bill Blatsky, head of the Join Russia Putin for President Committee. How embarrassing. They printed over 1 million bumper stickers. Top diplomat Christopher R. Hill says that Russia's response to the Ukraine crisis means that Moscow has betrayed the New World Order it has been a part of for the last 25 years. Russia is leading the fight for world freedom and has declared war on the New World Order imperialism. Behind Putin's success so far in foiling the cabal is a team of think tanks inside Russia and think tanks in Iran and other nations opposed to the NWO. They take their job seriously in trying to resolve and counteract all the threats in a diplomatic way and stay within international law, and at the same time show some claws and teeth, because keep in mind they also like winning. The cabal wanted to take over Syria, destroy Iran, and make Russia roll over and play dead in the Ukraine to control not only the Middle East, but control Eurasia. That's not likely to happen. Starting a Christian-Islam war, which is still on the cards to try and bring the last of the dialectic principles to bring the prophecies of the Bible.
There's only one more big one they want to do. That's Israel, thesis, Arabs, antithesis, and at the right time, using the Hegelian dialectical philosophy, they will bring those two groups together in a 7-year treaty, fulfill the Bible prophecy, and Jesus will come again. Amen. Whoa!
A note to the gullible: the prophecies are just suggestions being played out. Watch my holographic disclosure series. This story is so complex that I just wanted to outline some of the important issues on Russia and the dialectic principles on the first level of the illusion. There are many Kabbalistic levels at play here. The big question is, what will happen in Ukraine? Now that Crimea is part of Russia, it's game over for the bankers in Ukraine. The US can threaten Russia all it wants with sanctions, but the truth of the matter is, Russia holds all the ace cards up its sleeve, and it'll hurt America and Europe a lot more. Their think tanks are steps ahead. Russian troops are mounted on the border. Ukraine has no chance against them. Will NATO get involved? Nope. NATO is a paper tiger, and any aggression will be from the US. Will Russia go into Ukraine? They will first assess the number of dead, like 100 or 1,000, to how many will die in an actual conflict, if they do go in. Most probably the pro-Russians who've seized the government buildings will be sadly sacrificed, and nothing will happen. Unless many civilians are killed, Russia will not likely go in. They will use other methods and dry up Ukraine until it falters economically and through the court systems. America will do nothing to get involved. All this is happening as a diversion for what's going on in the US and Europe with the death of the world's currency. Their crimes against humanity is now all coming out in the open with all their banking scams, gold rigging, stock market rigging. Like blood-sucking vampires, they've looted the world and brought destruction, death and poverty throughout the ages. Desperately, they'll try to pin the collapse on Russia to bring in the new money system, whitewash all the past through a third world war that has been diverted that many times by the think tanks in Russia and the opposing world. Remember, an all-out nuclear war is impossible, as explained in Holographic Disclosure 11. The modern new technology is just as devastating. If a world war does start, it would be mutual annihilation, which the world is not prepared to go ahead with. Which is nothing new. In fact, it's lost technology used thousands of years ago. No, it's not alien technology, as the cabal-run media will have us believe. Star Wars technology that mimics comet fallouts is right here, right now. They're so bright, they look like nuclear weapons. Billions of dollars to invest in comet diversions from hitting the Earth is a scam. I'll explain that later. Arab states are tumbling down, not by invading foreign armies like what happened in Iraq a decade ago, but this time by cunningly and remotely triggering all the hot-button spots that will ultimately lead to instability, sectarian violence, and civil war. A quick look at Egypt. Vladimir Putin, aware of the Western conspiracy, fought back with absolute courage and determination. And so did General al-Sisi in Egypt. They both broke the rules as they stood against the US-EU plot to destabilize Russia and Egypt. Al-Sisi, a hero in the eyes of most Egyptians, has already proved that he is a sincere patriot and army commander who won't look the other way when the future of his country and his fellow citizens is jeopardized. Sisi is running for president. When he made the application for presidency, he handed to the government lawyers all his bank accounts and statements to show his financial positions and that he won't be taking any bribes. Imagine Western leaders doing that? Joke of the century. That democratically elected puppet tool, Morsi of the Muslim Brotherhood, was doing nothing except making sure that the Egyptian domino would fall and shatter into irreparable pieces. This clueless Morsi, backed by Washington and Tel Aviv, was setting up the stage so that Egypt would join the chaotic circus of the new Middle East. They have failed, but are still causing big problems in Egypt. Russia has signed a lucrative arms deal with Egypt that will deliver the latest technology and weapons. Egypt is armed to the teeth thanks to Washington. They're ranked 5th in the world's largest Egyptian Air Force. With over 1,300 aircraft, 900 attack jets, 350 fighter helicopters, and 50,000 ready personnel, the EAF is a force to be reckoned with. Russia and the Arab countries have pledged billions in aid once the dust settles to turn Egypt back to the top 10 tourist attractions once again and boost their economy. A quick look at Syria. The U.S. backing off Syria is not by accident and was not by chance. The plan was mapped out carefully by all countries involved who got together and worked on a solution to stop another Iraq, Libya and Afghanistan from happening. Vladimir Putin's visit to London in June 2013, a meeting with British Prime Minister Cameron, President Putin passed on a message to the US, Israel and France in response to their recent announcement that they will arm the al-Nusra fighters in Syria. A British intelligence reporter stated that Putin went to London bringing his own Russian-cooked food and did not consume anything from Britain, including water, as he even brought his own water with him, reportedly because he had concerns of being poisoned. The British intelligence site stated that Putin threatened to send other secret Russian-made weapons to Syria, which would tip the balance of power even further in favor of Syria, and reiterated that these weapons will not be used against Israel on condition that Israel will not participate in the war within Syria and neighboring countries. With the Russian Navy back in the Mediterranean and the Israelis threatening to attack their air defense weapons in transit, this gave the Russians no choice but to deploy all of their top-line weapon systems to protect their defensive deployment. Unsaid has been that any preemptive attack on the Russians would be dealt with in a full response so that the attacking party could then explain to its citizens once again why Syria was worth the devastation. Despite the media coverage, Syria has received the state-of-the-art defense and attack systems. The S-400 system has a range of over 400 miles and is considered more than a decade ahead of the most advanced U.S. counterpart. They're now working on the S-500s. Now with the Islander system in place, capable of clearing Golan Heights, minefields and underground bunkers, and not to speak of defeating air defenses, these enhanced systems, if delivered as claimed, combined with recent Iranian improvements in vertical attack anti-ship missiles, changes the balance of power in the Middle East. The improved version, the 1A Buratino, uses a combination of air and surface blast thermobaric warheads to defeat any armored enemy on open ground. This system, delivered to the Russian army only 2 years ago, is capable of stopping any main battle tank, including the M1A and the Israeli Markova. Putin clearly stated that the Middle East is going to witness a significant change. Syria will be armed with weapons that have never been seen before in the Middle East, including computer-guided smart missiles that never miss their target. He also added that Russia will supply Syria with Sken 5 ground-to-sea missiles that are capable of hitting and sinking any target up to 250 kilometers off the Syrian coast. Syria is now on the verge to final mop-up operations. The plan is to bring Syria back to its glory, make it a powerhouse nation of wealth and modernization, importing gas and oil. China's plans to build a super train from Damascus through Tehran back to China's mainland is on the cards. China also proposed that Germany and China cooperate on building a new economic Silk Road linking China and Europe. The implications for economic growth across Eurasia are staggering. So, which way will China head? All the way to the bank. China has no intention of aggressive takeovers like the West. China is only interested in trading. During his visit to Duisburg, Chinese President Xi Jinping made a masterstroke of economic diplomacy that runs directly counter to the Washington neoconservative faction's effort to bring a new confrontation between NATO and Russia. Russia has plenty of important friends and is aligned with the BRICS nations. Every nation on Earth, thanks to the aggression of the cabal, has to now arm itself to the teeth to protect its sovereignty. Wasted money in an arms racket when the people of those nations are living in fear and in poverty. The control of the US by the wealthiest families of the planet is exercised in a powerful, profound, and clandestine manner. The world now awaits World War III. Third World War is already here, called the Quiet War, being conducted under subjective biological warfare, implying extensive objectives of social control and destruction of human life. In other words, slavery and genocide. The concocted war on terrorism, false flags, looting, stealing, and false democracies. The list is endless. The US should have had their streets lined with gold at the enormous prosperity it possesses. Instead, it has been sucked dry by the cabal vampires. Vladimir Putin is not America's enemy, but a friend. Putin is emerging as a worldwide voice respected throughout Asia, the Middle East, South America, and even in the United States. People throughout the world are now uniting in knowing that they all have the same common enemy. Many people are thinking Putin is part of the New World Order. If this is so, then why is Syria, Iran, and Egypt still standing? But doesn't Russia have a Rothschild bank? Do you think Putin's going to change all that overnight? The foundation structure of banking and trading? Some say the world powers are splitting the cake. Only time will tell. But my gut feeling is telling me that people have had enough of this New World Order. Moscow is seeking the lead in an alternate BRICS-aligned faction that will pose a major threat to the unipolar future envisaged by the cabal. The New World Order plans are not going to schedule, or so it seems, a one-world government. Of course, the illuminated cabal knows this quite well, that humans will never accept it. How can they? How can there be a one-world government in this dualistic system when the left and right hemispheres of the brain exist? Therefore, the illusion of choice must be presented, but not necessarily a one-world government. There are things happening on different levels of reality, unseen and unknown by our ruler leaders. In the 1990s, tens of thousands of Russian troops training in the US and Russian military hardware being shipped in very unusual high quantities. There are also strange marking codes discovered in the back of a lot of signs that indicate a form of mapping directions for NATO foreign troops to get around in the US.
Now, when I was in America, I don't often say this, but I might as well say it here tonight. My driver, who has carried all the prophetic preachers across America before me, told me, he said, every time we get to a bridge, you watch. And we went through 38 states in 2.5 weeks, and every bridge we went near, there were men working underneath it, putting in steel girders. He said, that is for the United Nations tanks that are going to come in and take over America shortly. Is everybody clear what I'm saying tonight? This goes on tape. The whole of America will be inundated with United Nations troops. In fact, they're training now in Alamogordo, New Mexico. And very shortly, what they're going to do, George Bush is going to send the American troops out of the country to all these trouble spots called the Axis of Evil. And while he's got his own troops out of the country, the United Nations will take over America and imprison Christians and imprison patriots, because they're going to introduce their one world government. Anybody who is against it will be in prison.
One really needs to get a copy of top-notch researcher Jim Keith's Black Helicopters Over America, the endgame strategy to make this connection. Confrontations boldly draw the battle lines allowing people to see what's going on, but lately they seem to be going full steam ahead, making the moves more and more obvious. If Americans do wake up to the fact that their country is being dismantled piece by piece, and a sudden offensive is mounted against the patriot or populist movements in the US, then the initial strike forces that will come into force will be the black, unmarked helicopters, which can be equipped with massive firepower that can mop up hotspots of patriotic resistance. Could this also be why Homeland Security bought 1.6 billion rounds of ammo? FEMA will no doubt coordinate this final goal. However, not everything may go to plan and may go either way. So far, they have failed to disarm the American public.
Hello friends, this is David Bose. Today is October 28th, 2014, and it's good to see everybody today. In the news today, Russia and China and some of these other countries have done it. The collapse of the Rothschild elite Jewish bankers that have run the world for hundreds of years, perhaps all the way back in a line of people through the Windsors and the Hanovers and the Merovingian line and all the way back to Babylon. These people that have run the world since the time man began running the world have been defeated. Mr. Putin joined their little club, like the little KGB, and worked his way up there. And then he got to the top, kind of like JFK, and he decided he wants to bring them all down. But he survived. They didn't kill him. They're not gonna, he's got them over the barrel. He won. He took them all down. Oh, yeah, I know. He only has a few $billion in his pocket. But, these Jewish elite bankers have literally trillions of dollars in offshore accounts. And all the gold and silver. They own, Walmart, Monsanto seeds. So we can't even eat without these people. We won't be able to buy or sell anything without these Jewish elite bankers, these Rothschild bankers, because they own the computers that I'm speaking on, the phones that you use every day, all of the technology, all of the computer chips, the silver mines, the gold mines, the phone companies, the electric company, the oil company. Everything you do, you eat, you sleep, your beds, your cars, the tire, the oil companies, the energy, they own it all. And you can't buy the food unless you go to Walmart. And they own that too. You can't get to Walmart without a car. And they own those too. But Putin has brought them all down today. And they're done for. So it kind of seems, it's a big deal. But with all this other stuff going on, and then on top of that, we got shootings and riots and, Fukushima, that's a pretty big deal. But that's kind of gone, downhill now. But this is really a big deal, folks. And whether or not it's a real thing or not a real thing, it's a big deal. Most people that I have, heard on YouTube, comments and message board, I guess most people believe that this is real. That Russia, China, Brazil, and these other countries are actually trying to stick their nose in the air and go against the IMF or the World Bank or the Rothschild, powers. And, it's kind of like, yesterday I did the video on Putin having something to do with ISIS, and oh wow, I don't think I expected that at all. I mean, I've been doing this now for a little while, and I've never had such a bad reaction. People are just livid when you talk bad about Putin because, He appears to be a Christian. Well, it's kind of like, to me, I liken it to Obama could do anything I mean, he could literally lynch 50 people in the town square, and most of the black population would still think he's, he's everything. He's great. He's wonderful. He can't do anything wrong. They're just totally blind to whatever he does. And so a lot of the white people can't understand that. But you're doing the same thing. Your Putin cannot do anything wrong. And I'll admit, it doesn't look like he's doing anything wrong right now. But don't you understand? To Muslims, it doesn't look like Obama's doing anything wrong. He was put in there for a particular reason by the elite. Do not be deceived. These people, the elite, run everything, everywhere. Satan is the god of this world. He has complete control. And the beast that is on this earth right now is in control. And the false prophet's already here. And it's more than just one thing, friends. There's multiple layers of prophecy. But the basic idea of what the beast is the carnal nature, the fallen nature of the flesh. Vicious, animalistic nature that is fallen and degraded down through time. It's that same serpent that deceived Eve, that inner lower forces, the passions of the flesh, that is deceiving us now, that deceived Eve. It's the same. The dragon is the original serpent that deceived Eve. And so it is here today. True, it has individual horns, and certain individual horns will arise in the latter days. But that's not what this video is about. The video is about, we've got to understand that Satan is deceiving the whole world. And that Babylon the Great, that whore, is controlling and riding her. Everything you see in this world is a lie. And they control everything. They haven't, been around since yesterday. The Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, the Soviet Union, was, about 100 years ago. They've had control for a long time, and they haven't been losing control. Contrary to what you might think, they've actually been gaining more power with every passing day. Do not be deceived, they did not lose power in Russia. But just as they put in Obama to deceive a certain class of people, you say, well, it doesn't deceive me. Well, you're not the class that they're trying to deceive. Over here, there's a certain group of people they're trying to piss off. There's another group they're trying to appease. Okay? That's why they brought in a black man, so that they can appease minorities, and a Muslim, or one who appears or could be passed off as a Muslim with a Muslim name, to appease the Middle East, because their purpose for the last 8 years has been primarily, not completely primarily, but one of the main purposes has been this Middle East thing with ISIS. And they needed just such a man as Obama. Well, over there in Russia, they needed a man who was a Christian. And they needed the world to believe that he's the one. There's always the good cop, bad cop. If you believe that Putin is really some wonderful, good Christian man, think about it. You've seen many videos. I know many of you watch YouTube, and you know that Obama's not really a Muslim. He's not really a Christian. He doesn't work for ideology or for morality. He simply works for his bosses. He is a puppet, and he's doing what they tell him to do, just as Putin is doing. I can show you cases. I don't have the actual names at my fingertips right now, but I know there are many KGB agents that have worked right alongside Putin that are right now in some of these, like Kazakhstan and some of these other uh, parts of the Soviet Union that broke away, that all of a sudden are now Muslim, even though they never were a Muslim before. But they're saying they're Muslim because they become the prime minister or the president of these particular fallen breakaway, you know, states that were part of the Soviet Union. And they take on this persona and they get all this public opinion because Kazakhstan or whichever country that is that I'm thinking of, it was mostly a Muslim country. So, of course, you're not going to be president of that country unless you're Muslim. So they were part of the KGB and they took over, just like over here in America. Do you think it's just an accident that President Bush was, the chief of the CIA, the head of the CIA? Right about the time that they killed John F. Kennedy, because John F. Kennedy actually was going to try and help mankind and expose these people. Well, they put an end to that. They killed him. Now, if Putin was doing what JFK was doing and was trying to do something wonderful for the world, they would have already killed him. There ain't no way that with 95 of the Politburo over there in Russia, 95% control, that they would have lost it. Just because they had this supposed breakup of the Soviet Union. It was all planned, friends. Just like right now, this economic crisis with this new banking system is all planned. It's a controlled burn. They know we're too far in debt. The whole financial system's going down, and it's going down fast. So they got to come up with a new system. Well, they can't just snap their fingers and say, "Okay, everybody, we're going to collapse, and and we failed, and you're all going to lose your money." It may be riots, and they want riots in some places and sometime, but they get it all figured out. They're doing this very carefully. You got these think tanks. They're sitting around thinking about this every moment of every day, planning the whole strategy. What their plan is to have another system in place so they can just transfer it over. Now, I don't know if this new system, this new bank, is just a ruse, like a stopgap measure. You're not going to be able to find any proof. I looked for hours over the last few days to find some kind of proof that the Rothschilds have something to do with this BRICS bank financial, plot that's going on. They've got this thing to where it looks like Putin is just the great Christian who's leading the charge, and the Chinese and the Brazilians are great, and they're all wonderful, and they're getting sick and tired of these Rothschilds, and they're going to end it, and it's going to be, it may be the one way that they're going to save their own lives because people are getting sick of it. Our tyranny is getting very, very hard to accept. So they've got to make people believe that they're making some progress. This is exactly what they've done here with the Democrats and the Republicans here in America. Every time Bush is doing all these crazy things, taking us to war, so everybody's like, "Oh yeah, we got a bomb in there, and he's going to stop this and get us out of the Iraq and all stuff." But you have to understand, as you probably have figured out by now, he's just another puppet. He lies. He tells you all these things he's going to do. We're going to get out of Afghanistan. We're going to get out of Iraq. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Now, here we are. We've gone into how many more wars since he's been president? He's doing everything that Bush did and then some. And he's backing the same bankers. I've got video after video with Obama, backing Ben Bernanke. He's a Jew. And yet, we're actually believing that Obama's against Israel? He snubs Netanyahu in public. And we say, "Oh my goodness." They're trying to drum everybody up into this, if you watch Fox News or NBC, it don't matter where, they're going to be on the side of the Jewish people in Israel. Well, CNN, Wolf Blitzer, that's a Jewish person. Same thing with Fox News. You think Bill O'Reilly is the big, he's just the face. He takes his directions from Goldberg when he comes on his program and he gives his ideas, or a lot of these people you think, oh, they just made it because they're so funny, like Robin Williams or something. He didn't make it because he was so funny. He's Jewish. Bill Kristol, all of these people. I mean, I could go on and on and on. It's not just by accident that all of the things are happening. They didn't take over Russia and control Russia and then decide, well, we'll just let America go. No, they had to enter America a different way. They couldn't just take over in a revolution. They had to get into our politics and take over our political system, which is what they've done through money. The Jewish bankers, the Rothschild bankers. How do you? It's the most simplest thing in the world to take over the American government. All you need is money. This is capitalism, and they took it over a long time ago. And if anybody starts to disagree with them and go the other way that they don't like, they'll simply assassinate them. So, you know, I don't think we should believe for a moment that that KGB agent, Mr. Putin, is any kind of a genuine, real Christian who really wants to save mankind and give us morals. You know, I've often looked at this thing in different directions and one side down the other. And, you know, I know we're all people, and people have to have somewhere inside of them something genuine. So most of the people, even people in very high positions, are genuine. They're real. They get people that believe in what they're doing. I mean, Mr. Obama may actually be sympathetic to the Muslim people, and much of what he's doing may be genuine, but you see, they picked him for that reason. And Putin may genuinely be Christian, but he still works for his boss. And whether he knows it or not, they're pulling the strings, and you've got to be aware of this. You know, if you need more proof that this is just an orchestrated, controlled burn, I mean, friends, how do we even know whether or not we're going to need a bank? We're going to go to the one world government system with a mark on your forehead or a mark on your hand, or you will not be able to buy or sell. This may be one of the very things that they're going to use as a means to do such a thing. Like they're using Ebola and ISIS to panic us and to get us to go into World War III because, oh, look at ISIS, or they're using Ebola to say, oh, we got to all be, checked our blood and checked your temperature, and you can't get on a plane, give you your papers and do all this. Well, if the crisis of the financial situation goes and people start losing their burgers and their Walmart, Levi's, and Coca-Cola, and they can't get their drugs, from these pharmaceutical companies anymore because they're getting low on money, they're going to want a savior. And if this little BRICS nation bank thing can't save mankind right away, because people got to eat quick, then maybe perhaps that will be their cue to step in and save us. I don't know what the plan is, except that what Scripture tells us, Babylon the Great, the mother of the harlots, the world system run by Satan, is going to run this entire world with an iron hand. And it says that he shall deceive both small and great, rich and poor, large and small, of every nation, every tribe, and every tongue. And everyone will either receive a mark upon their right hand or upon their forehead, or they will not be able to buy or sell. So, friends, if you really do believe that Putin's such a great guy and this new system he's coming up with is the answer, think again, because if it is the answer, it's not going to be the answer from Christ, because we know that we are, according to prophecy, about to go into a time when a great deception shall take over this country and the world. And if you don't keep your eyes open and pay attention, you're going to be deceived. This is just another one of these little efforts that they're using to deceive us. Obama is deceiving us, and Putin is deceiving us. And these are some of their puppet deceivers. And there's going to be more. And whoever the Antichrist appears to be, he will be the greatest deceiver you will have ever seen. So, friends, keep your eyes open. Don't believe what you hear on the news. You know, no matter what they tell you, you cannot believe it, especially right now. They're using Ebola to scare us. They're using ISIS to scare us. They're going to use this bank situation for something. Don't believe it. Keep your eyes open, friends. This is David Both signing out. You guys have a great week.
President Putin of Russia bans Rothschilds. What did I just say? I said that Putin bans Rothschilds from Russia. Finally, someone is standing up to the New World Order and Illuminati. Putin played the New World Order game long enough to climb as high as the position of president, then he abruptly turned his back on them, prompting Jacob Rothschild to accuse him of being a traitor to the New World Order. Brave Vladimir Putin has banned Jacob Rothschild and his New World Order banking cartel family from entering Russian territory under any circumstances. Putin recently reminded his cabinet that he paid off the Rothschilds' debt and grabbed them by the scruff of the neck and kicked them out Russia's back door. This meeting featured the president pounding his fist on the table and vowing to destroy the New World Order, and according to a Kremlin source, Putin is making great strides towards this goal. They do not own the world, and they do not have carte blanche to do whatever they want. If we do not challenge them, there will be other issues. We will not be bullied by them. It is understood that the Rothschild banking racket was a noose tied around the neck of the Russian economy. Once the knot was tightened, the economy would struggle and choke. Early in his presidency, he made a priority of uniting Russia socially, spiritually, and economically. He ordered the arrest of the Rothschild-backed oligarch Mikhail Khodorkovsky, who had made Rothschild, Henry Kissinger, and Arthur Hartman directors of the Open Russia Foundation. He was so upset with the banksters in his temple, he tipped over their tables and drove them out with a whip. A keen student of history, well versed in world affairs, the Russian president has studied the history of the world's most elusive organization and understands the central role their financial collaborators have played in fomenting the major international conflicts of the 20th century. Now they want to plunge us into World War III. The New World Order's invasive roots and branches keep spreading around the world, but President Putin has stopped them expanding into Russia. This is a major blow to their plans for world domination, and now they view him as a real threat. He's got them running scared, which is why he is degraded in the Western media at every opportunity. The reality is that Putin is leading us towards a multipolar world, far from the one government, one religion future plotted by the New World Order. When he took his forces into Syria to protect a sovereign state, he further enhanced his reputation as a powerful leader. People around the world have started to wake up and notice. Here are 10 dark secrets from the wealthiest family in world history, the Rothschilds. Live in a time where the world's most recognizable people are celebrities. Thanks to the media, these are the people plastered on every television, movie, and magazine cover. Being a banker is difficult due to the public's overwhelming negative attitude towards banking, but even more so with celebrities who are constantly being exposed to the public. Before the media got into full swing with celebrity exposure, there was one family that was still recognizable, the Rothschild family. A lot can be said for the Rothschild family. They had an impossible amount of money and power across the world, and were influential in how some of the most important moments in the last 2 centuries played out. For today's society, it's hard to know too much about the Rothschild family since they are so secretive, and that they don't appear to have the same influence over world affairs as they once did after a spread of wealth. Heck, some people still think that they are lizard people of the New World Order that are using us all as puppets, and flying black helicopters over our houses. Basically, people just know that the Rothschilds were the world's richest people, and based out of Europe. There are some interesting facts about the family that you should know about as well. They include everything from secret societies, wars, incest, and just about everything else you would expect from a dysfunctional family, not a wealthy one. Here are 10 dark secrets from the wealthiest family in world history, the Rothschild. Number 10. There is a long line of incest. When your family has a lot more money than people know what to do with, and just as much power, it can be tempting to not want to have that compromised by outside families marrying their way in. The way that the Rothschild family kept out some of the people that were only after their money, was by marrying each other. As weird as it sounds, it was at least a good financial strategy. The entire incestual movement was spearheaded by the founder of the family, Mayer Amschel Rothschild. He set the whole line up so that the female members of the Rothschild family were very limited in their marriage options when it came to getting their inheritance. The only way to make absolutely sure that they would be getting money in the future was by marrying their cousins. Number 9. Some were very power-hungry. Money can be the root of all evil, and it can also make someone a bit power-hungry if they aren't careful. A lot of the members of the Rothschild family were thought to have a huge interest on the power of their country, and considered themselves to be even above the laws and lawmakers. Amschel Rothschild is claimed to have once said, "Give me control of the economics of a country, and I care not who makes her laws." What that essentially boils down to, is that they believed that they could set their own rules as long as they had enough money. And as you could probably tell, a lot of them did have enough money to set themselves above kings, queens, presidents, prime ministers, and whatever type of ruler each country had. It was an impressive collection of power that the Rothschild owned. Number 8. They dictated the price of gold. Some would argue that the price of gold is still to this day being decided by the Rothschild family. In 2004, Nathan Mayer Rothschild and Sons pulled out of the gold business, and any other precious metals, giving up their spot to Barclays. The Rothschild family having a say in the price of gold started back in 1919, when the 5 leading traders of the industry met twice a day to set the price. This gave the Rothschild family and their colleagues a lot of power over the people that held onto gold as their most valuable asset, and a lot of people are still doing it today. For that long span between 1919 and 2004, the meetings were held each day at the N.M. Rothschild and Sons offices. There have been several allegations of corruption in the time that they were still fixing the price, and after it. Number 7. And the U.S. Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve System is a bank that is privately owned, and is where the United States keeps most of its money. One of the major U.S. Federal Reserve banks is located in New York City, and is owned by those outside of the country. It is widely believed that both the Rothschild family and Rockefeller family both had a major say in the U.S. Federal Reserve. Now, the extent of their interest in the Federal Reserve has been massively debated. Some claim that there was no interest at all, but others believe that the Rothschild family had just as much power in America as they did in many of the European countries, and that owning all of the major banks was a secret that the Rothschild family could keep. The full amount of American money was never disclosed. Number 6. Many are believed to be Satanists. Here is another secret that will be debated until the end of time. Many of the witnesses that entered their home claim that the Rothschild family were filled with Satan worshippers. According to these same witnesses, the Rothschild family would set a spot at the table for the Dark Lord himself, and that nobody was allowed to sit in it. This one has been hard to confirm, but the reports have been numerous. To add a little more intrigue to the situation, some of the family members would sign their name on documents with the Seal of Solomon. Although the seal is mainly regarded as a symbol of the Jewish people, it was not the official symbol at the time. Instead it was seen as a largely unused symbol that was used only by magicians and Satanists in previous years. That is another debate that will still rage on. Number 5. They had ties to secret societies. You have heard many conspiracy theorists talk about secret societies like the Illuminati and the Freemasons, but most of that talk started with the Rothschild family. Either they are completely embracing the rumors and cracking fun at the situation, or they truly do have some interest in the secret underworld and its finances. Because there are those that will always try to expose the members in the supposed Illuminati, there are a lot of clues that were uncovered. One interesting clue that might suggest that the Rothschild family really is invested into secret societies, is stemming from World War I. Since the Rothschild family was present for the treaty that was signed at the end, people reported that a part of the treaty included them taking over the Bavarian Illuminati that was founded in 1776. Since the society is secret, you may never find out the details. Number 4. They have bankrolled many major wars. Since the Rothschild family controlled reportedly half of the money in the world, they were the ones that were able to fund most of the major wars that have happened over the past 200 or so years. The Rothschild family has funded everything from the Napoleonic Wars to the World Wars of the 20th century. By loaning money to governments instead of individuals, it has been able to make them the most powerful family in the history of the world. At the end of each war, the Rothschild family started to see dollar signs when the loans started coming back, and more money was needed by other countries for their rebuilding efforts. When the banks were all decimated because of the war, there was only one place to turn, and that was the Rothschild. Perhaps this is why they considered themselves to be above the law in most countries. Number 3. They had very strange parties. One thing that doesn't help the Illuminati rumors in the slightest, are the odd parties that the Rothschild family has held. The most notable, and telling, one that there are photographs from was back in 1972. Just to get it started, the invitations were sent in reverse so that you needed a mirror to see what was written on the invitation, and when you arrived at the building the lights out front were completely red. A lot of these parties involved some very odd choices in style that included wearing animal-style heads, and masks with multiple faces. The photos of the party seemed like it was something straight out of a Lady Gaga video, if that gives you any clue on how weird it really was. They also had a strange fascination with bird cages, but that's perhaps because Salvador Dali was a family friend. Number 2. They could be hiding up to $650 billion. The Rothschild family is, without a doubt, the richest family in the history of the world. It is strange to not see any of their names listed on Forbes each year in terms of the richest individuals, but as a family, they are still rich. The family has claimed that through assets they have a net worth estimated to be at about $350 billion. The reason for this being that spreading the bloodline away from incest has caused some diluting in the assets. However, there are many that still estimate that the Rothschild family is still the world's leader, with over $1 trillion in net worth. That's because for some, it is hard to believe that a family who has someone that is worth $4 billion, Jacob Rothschild, and $20 billion, Sir Evelyn Rothschild, can only be worth that $350 billion when all of them are added up. Number 1. Nathan Rothschild cheated his way to owning England's finances. Perhaps something that nobody would be able to get away with now, Nathan Rothschild essentially owned all of England's finances after the Battle of Waterloo. Since he had connections, Nathan was able to get word before anybody else that the Battle of Waterloo was not a lost cause. Everyone else, on the other hand, considered it to be a loss that would devastate the country. From there it's believed that Nathan went directly to the London Stock Exchange, and sold all of his bonds in the British government. When seen doing so, everyone else in the building did the same thing, causing the price to drop to almost nothing. When the prices were at a new low, Nathan bought back all of his bonds, as well as everyone else that sold theirs in a way of getting even more power. Please share this video, get the word out. They are the 1%, we are the 99%.